Welcome to the FCPA training series from Corporate Compliance Insights featuring CCI founder Maurice Gilbert and Tom Fox of Tom Fox Law. Tom has practiced law for 25 years and is now assisting companies with FCPA compliance, risk management, and international transactions. Tom writes and speaks around the world on a variety of topics ranging from FCPA compliance, indemnities, and other forms of risk management. The videos in this series provide an introduction to FCPA compliance for legal, compliance, and operations personnel. Please note, the information should not be considered all-inclusive, and we encourage viewers to seek professional advice prior to implementing any compliance program. So let's get started.
Hi, this is Maurice Gilbert with Corporate Compliance Insights, and joining me today in the studio is Tom Fox of Tom Fox Law. Today we'll be discussing effective compliance programs. Tom, how can a company create an effective compliance program under the FCPA?
Yes, the most important thing about creating a compliance program or an effective compliance program under the FCPA is the tone at the very top of the company. If you don't have the top of the company saying, we're going to do this not only because it's the law, but it's really the right thing to do, you're not going to have a very good success at having an effective compliance program. So it really all starts with tone at the top. The very senior management of the company has to communicate. They have to talk the talk, but more importantly, they have to walk the walk of doing business ethically and in compliance with the FCPA. And with that as a starting point, you can use that to create an effective compliance program.
What are some of the essential elements for an effective compliance program?
There are numerous laws regarding anti-corruption and anti-bribery across the world. The FCPA is the United States law. The United Kingdom has the Bribery Act. Both of those laws have been interpreted by the regulators to give us some guidance on what an effective compliance program may be. So, for instance, the SEC and the Department of Justice have given us 10 hallmarks of an effective compliance program. The Ministry of Justice in the United Kingdom has issued 6 principles of an adequate procedures compliance program, which is available under the UK Bribery Act as an affirmative defense. Non-governmental organizations such as the OECD have issued guidance on what they call 13 good practices in anti-bribery and anti-corruption. So there are several different resources that a person or a company can go to, but they generally all distill down to about 5 concepts. And those concepts are leadership, risk assessment, standards and controls, communication and training, and oversight. Let me discuss each one of those in a little more depth. Leadership means, of course, tone at the top, but it means cascading those leadership principles of doing business ethically and in compliance down to your employee base through a variety of mechanisms: training, incentives, hiring, promotion. How do you inculcate doing business ethically and in compliance into the DNA of a company? That's really leadership. Risk assessment means you need to take a look at your risk. You need to take and understand what are your risks doing business outside the United States if you're covered by the FCPA. Are you in areas that are prone to or have a high propensity for bribery and corruption? Are you in industries that are so heavily regulated that foreign governmental officials may have their hands out to get licenses and permits for you to do business? What are your risks? And assess your risks. Put those findings in writing and use that as a guidepost to set up the next part or next concept of an effective compliance program, which are standards and controls. And those are generally recognized as 3 levels. Your base level or your first level is your code of ethics or your code of conduct. That sits at the bottom. Above that sits your written program, which consists of policies and procedures. And above that sits your internal controls. Each one is a little narrower and more focused, as you would expect from a pyramid shape than the base below it. So the code of ethics tends to be broader, more aspirational. Your policies and procedures are more specific to the specific actions that your employees and third parties may engage in. And then your internal controls follow in to make sure that there's appropriate oversight and monitoring of your policies and procedures. The next step is communication and training. Training means more than simply sitting down and giving online web-based training. It means assessing who in your company needs to receive online training, who in your company needs to receive in-person training, who of the third parties you do business need to receive training on not only FCPA compliance, but your specific policies and procedures and controls. The second part of that, though, is communication. And if you take a look at the HR function, what does HR do? In many ways, they communicate. They communicate how a company should comply with various laws. They communicate what are the appropriate standards of conduct within a company. So take that model of communication. Are there incentives? Are you compensated for doing business ethically and in compliance? Are you evaluated? If you're promoted to senior management, is that taken into account? So there's a variety of communication tools. And the last part of the communication tool, though, or communication function is, do you have subject matter experts who can answer questions? So if you've got a guy in Africa and he wonders, is this particular meal or entertainment or gift going to violate our internal compliance program, and he can't find the answer, can he pick up the phone and call someone in the United States or in the compliance department and get an answer to that? So is there communication? The last part is oversight. In any process, you must validate it through a second set of eyes. And that's really what oversight is. Oversight can be monitoring. It can be transaction monitoring. It can be relationship monitoring. It can be ongoing other types of monitoring that's computer-based or big data analytics. It can be auditing, which of course is a much narrower focus, but a deeper dive to look at the specifics of a transaction. So for instance, if you're looking at third parties, have all of the documentation been put in place? Was it properly analyzed or reviewed? Is there a written record of that? Is a contract in place? Is that contract being followed? Are the appropriate terms and conditions? And then was there management of that relationship thereafter? That's something auditing is uniquely situated to do. All of that goes into the oversight function because you have to make sure that not only are your employees following your compliance program, but those you're doing business with are also following it. So those 5 concepts, if you can implement those into a compliance program, it will give you a very well-rounded compliance program that I think will allow you to comply with any anti-bribery or anti-corruption law worldwide, whether it be the FCPA, the UK Bribery Act, or even the domestic anti-bribery or anti-corruption laws in China.
Are there any other key components you can describe for our viewers?
Okay, I'm going to give you the secret sauce, and this is it. Listen very carefully. Here it is. It's document, document, document. Those are the 3 most important words in FCPA compliance. The reason those are the 3 most important words are, if you don't document it, not only can you not measure it, not only can you not assess it, not only can you not manage it thereafter, but remember, the FCPA is not regulated by engineers. It's regulated by lawyers. And in a lawyer's mind, if you haven't documented it, it never happened. So if your compliance policy is the most robust, but you haven't documented all the steps you took when you brought a third party on board, if you haven't documented your evaluation of their due diligence, in a regulator's eyes, that never happened. If you haven't documented your travel and entertainment expense for foreign governmental officials, properly allowable under the FCPA, in a government's eyes, that never happened, and that makes it a violation. So you have to document your program to actually substantiate that you've taken the steps. But equally important, if the government ever comes knocking at the door, if you have not documented, in their mind, you have no program.
Tom, thanks for joining us, and we welcome you back for the next in our FCPA video series. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, before implementation of your own FCPA compliance program, you may wish to seek professional advice. Also, as a reminder, please visit us online at corporatecomplianceinsights.com.